Hello, this is Mrs. Brown, and today we're going to talk about the power rule. Okay, so the skill, if you're using the content frame to take notes, the first column is skill, you'd write power rule. The second column is what is it? So the official version of it is for every non-zero number A, remember non-zero means not zero, and integers, which are their whole numbers and their opposites, no fractions, no decimals, M and N. A to the M in parentheses to the N power equals A to the M times N. Okay, so here's an example of why it works. And actually, we can use the product rule, which we learned last time, to see why it would actually work. So 3 squared and then to the third power. So that means 3 squared times 3 squared times 3 squared. And that would be 3 to the 6 because it's 2 times 3. If you think back to the product rule we talked about last time, I have the same base and I'm multiplying. So I do 2 plus 2 plus 2, which is 3. Remember, multiplication is a shortcut for addition. So for the product rule, we were adding the exponents. For the power rule, we're multiplying these. That's a really common mistake that students make. So please make sure you're being careful with whether you're supposed to be multiplying the exponents or not. So when we're using the power rule, we're going to be multiplying the exponents. So when do you use it? When you have a monomial raised to a power. So something like a monomial would be something like this, something like this. We'll talk about that more next time. You don't have to stress about it. But it's just whenever you're raising it to a power, that's what you would use this. Okay, so if you need to, you can pause, take notes. And I'm going to switch it out and let's take a look at some examples. Okay, so again, your next column is going to be examples. Okay, so when we do that, if I have something like 5 squared to the fourth power, again, when you're doing this, instead of trying to sit there and memorize something, if every time you're doing it, you're writing it out, you're going to be much more likely to remember it. It takes tiny few seconds longer to do it that way, but then you're actually saving yourself time with trying to memorize it because you're automatically going to memorize it after doing a bunch of problems. So 5 squared to the fourth power means 5 squared, and you're going to do 2 times 4 using the power rule. And so that would be 5 to the 8th power. And again, if I were to write this out, you don't have to, but if I were to write this out, 5 squared to the fourth power means 4 5 squareds. So that would be 5 squared times 5 squared times 5 squared times 5 squared. Okay. So another example, x to the third to the fourth. Remember, a power raised to a power, that's going to be x to the 3 times 4 using the power rule. And so that's going to be x to the 12th power because 3 times 4 is 12. And finally, if we take something a little bit more complicated, it's not that complicated. And I raise it, say, to the second power, it's this whole thing squared, which means I'm doing 8a to the fourth, b to the fifth times 8a to the fourth, b to the fifth. And so I'm taking it a piece at a time. 8 squared is 64. A to the fourth power means a to the 4 times 2, which would be a to the 8th. B to the fifth power to the second power is b to the 5 times 2, which is b to the 10. So this is 64, a to the 8th, b to the 10th when we square it. Okay? So finally, when not to use it. Okay? So if I have something like 3 squared, x squared to the fourth, okay, you don't use for the number outside the parentheses. I don't know if I'm still on screen. Okay, so if I have the 3 squared outside of the parentheses, I'm going to use the power rule here. I'm just not going to use it out here. This is going to stay 3 squared, and that's like 3 squared times x to the 8th. So I would use it here, but I'm not going to use it on a number outside the parentheses if I have a combination like this. Okay? I hope this helps. Have a fabulous day, and I'll talk to you soon.